what's right. Sure as Kilimanjaro rises like Olympus above the sand. I seek to cure what's deep inside, frightened of this thing that I've become.
Hi there, I'm nicodehaan, and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced and natural wild world.
To recover our natural health, regain our rights and freedoms, and I'm Ellen Dehaan.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Durango, Colorado. Right now, 75 degrees, low of 56, and a high of 85, and clear skies. Sun is shining. It's beautiful out there, isn't it?
It's another beautiful day.
Yeah, for sure. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Odysee channel. Hit the follow button, hit that like button, hit all those buttons. Help our channel grow, and we'll be posting on LinkedIn and Facebook too. If you hit the link below the show notes, you can maximize your nutrition with products from Mother Earth Labs. These are products that we use to supplement our diet, so check that out. Now, we look at mainstream news stories about anti-aging, natural health, history, climate, as well as our freedoms, and we do our own analysis. All topics for today's show are in the show notes listed below the description. If you have any questions or comments, you can use the link below the show notes at nicodehaan@me.com, or comment on YouTube or Odysee or even on Facebook, or get a hold of me somehow. Okay, so let's start off the show here. We've got some articles here about fat and about carbohydrates, and so we're talking really about fuel today.
Yes.
How we fuel our body. We have 3 macronutrients, and one of them is protein. This is what repairs our body, and the rest of it is all fuel. So, our first story is a news story. Breaking news: major fat-burning discovery. Over the past 30 years, scientists have identified natural molecules in all of us that influence our appetite and our metabolism, and hence our weight. Now, researchers at the Harvard Medical School and elsewhere are identifying the molecules that not only affect our weight, but also cause other health benefits of exercise.
You know, this is breaking news from 2012.
Well, that's when they first started looking at it at
Right.
Harvard Medical School, right? They published, they study in Nature.
Yes. And in January of 2012, a research team led by Dr. Spiegelman, a Harvard Medical School professor, published a new study in the journal Nature. And the study showed that exercising muscle produces a hormone called irisin.
Irisin travels throughout the body in the blood and alters fat cells, explains that doctor.
Body fat is stored inside fat cells. Most of these fat cells are called white fat cells. Their function is to store the fat.
Yeah, there's two types of fat. Well, there's actually 3 now, they're claiming, but we're talking now about the white fat versus the brown fat. And our distant ancient ancestors didn't eat as regular as we do. About 40,000 years ago on the Serengeti, reference to the song, our ancestors were able to get a serious meal only a few times a week. In between meals, they needed some source of energy. A large part of it came from the fat they stored away after a meal.
In 2009, studies from Harvard Medical School and elsewhere discovered that humans have not only white fat cells, but also brown fat cells. And brown fat cells don't store fat, they burn fat. So if your goal is to lose weight, you want to increase your number of brown fat cells and decrease your white fat cells.
Yeah, we've known for a long time that a regular program of moderate exercise protects us against type 2 diabetes. For example, a lifestyle program that included regular moderate exercise reduced the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by nearly 60%, more than any medication yet invented. And how does this happen?
Well, irisin may be an important part of the answer. In addition to its effect in creating brown fat cells, it also helps prevent or overcome insulin resistance, which is part of the problem with type 2 diabetes. Although Dr. Spiegelman did his studies in mice, he found that humans have irisin too. And while not yet proven, it is very likely that irisin has similar effects in humans.
Yeah, it says here that irisin may not be an unnatural pharmaceutical.
It's not.
Right, is not.
Not an unnatural pharmaceutical. makes it?
Rather, it's part of the natural body chemistry that may make it more potent and less likely to have adverse effects. Well,
In
that
other
really
words,
makes
it's
sense.
natural and we produce it within our bodies.
Yeah. So there's a justifiable excitement about the discovery of this actually a
Everison.
hormone. Yeah. And the speed of which science is discovering the chemistry of exercise appetite and metabolic rate and body weight. So this hormone is kind of the influencer of whether you're going to be burning that brown fat or storing the
White fat.
or as they've recently talked about too on other things that we've read, that there is a in between where it has both the brown and the white mix.
And we'll get to that in a bit.
So it says, however, our environment and its effect on our own behavior play a huge role in determining how much we exercise, how much we eat, and therefore how much we weigh.
Yeah, okay, so let's go to the next article.
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting is because it states here the idea of moderate exercise. You don't have to really, and I think this kind of relates to the natural process of looking for food. Our ancestors, that was probably the main thing we were doing.
They
every
weren't
morning,
running
right?
mostly, they were
Yeah,
walking,
you were running,
they were
but
climbing.
you were also
they
climbing
were,
and rolling around and playing with the kids and taking care of grandpa and all that stuff that goes into it. Next article is called "Your Fat Can Burn Itself," say scientists in weight loss breakthrough. This is a breakthrough.
It's from sciencefocus.com.
Yeah. Weight loss can be tricky, but scientists have finally found a way to
Might have.
Yeah, they might. A cheat code for burning calories without exercising or changing your diet. All of it comes down to a fat-burning mechanism you may already have in your body known as the beige fat.
Oh, this is something new.
Well, I've never heard of it really before,
No.
but it makes sense that there is an in-between with the white fat and the brown fat, which we've known about for quite a
whatever.
while.
I mean, they say there is. So exercise and
It must be
diet
true.
are still two of the most crucial factors. But a team of researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, have discovered a way of turning ordinary white fat cells into beige fat cells.
While these sound like two sides of the same coin, there is a difference. Lots of animals, including humans, have three types of fat cells: white, beige, and brown.
White cells store calories for energy, brown cells burn energy to release heat, and beige ones combine both tasks.
Yeah, so researchers have long believed that creating beige fat requires starting from stem cells. The new study, which is now published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, demonstrated that ordinary white fat cells can transition into beige cells just by the production of a certain protein, and that's known as KLF-15.
It's by limiting the production of that protein.
Yeah.
So it says KLF-15 plays a role in metabolism and the function of fat cells. So Professor Brian Feldman, who is a professor in pediatric endocrinology at the University of California, and one of the authors of the study, says his team investigated how the protein functions in mice, which retain brown fat throughout their lives. They found that KLF-15 was much less abundant in the white fat cells than in the brown or the beige fat cells.
The team bred mice with white fat cells that lacked the KLF-15 and discovered that these mice converted the cells from white to beige. Not only could they make the switch, but without the protein that default setting.
Without that protein, without KLF-15, the default setting became beige. So it just automatically went to beige.
So why does this protein KLF-15 have this effect? Using cultured human fat cells, the team discovered that protein controls the abundance of receptors called the ADRB1, which helps to maintain natural energy balances.
So according to the team, a drug that targets the ADRB1's receptor is much more likely to work and could have advantages over current weight loss drugs. Mainly, it could limit the number of side effects and could have longer lasting effects.
So nowhere in this article do they want to go the natural way of saying, let's find out maybe what's in foods that promotes this.
Oh, there's nothing about foods in it.
No, it says about drugs. So let's develop a drug, but that's helps our economy, right? So I guess that makes sense.
All right. So now we're on article number 3.
Yeah.
How does fat leave the body?
Aha.
So that's an interesting question I never thought about before.
Well, basically 2 ways, right? The role of fat. So let's talk about this. The role of fat in the human body. First of all, fat, of course, stores energy. Energy releases the triglycerides. The second thing it does, it keeps us warm. A little fat on your body helps insulate. And this is what we've talked about in kind of years ago when we know that winter is coming. We start eating a lot more fruit because it's more available. We start eating more carbohydrates because we've stored them for safety purposes, so we have food. And a lot of studies have talked about, there was a study I know that was done in Switzerland, that the animals who were eating the grass in the summer were much more healthy than once they were starting eating the hay, which is grass that's old.
It's dried.
And it's dried. And of course, probably fungus in it and things like that. So your body has to do a lot more work. And maybe you're not as healthy. And that's what they kind of determined. One of the doctors was talking about that. Anyway, the other thing that we don't really talk about is that our fat cells make the hormones. And this is
make a lot of hormones. Yeah. So now the question is, we've already talked about white fat, brown fat. Okay, so now turning fat into usable energy. And there's lipolysis and beta oxidation.
Lipolysis is a process where the fat cells release the stored triglycerides into the bloodstream. These are broken down into the free fatty acids. And then the fatty acids go into the meta-oxidations. In other words, they mix with oxygen and release ATP, and ATP are the molecules along with water and carbon dioxide. So ATP is the energy source for all our body cells.
That's adenosine triphosphate.
Yeah. So the fat loss byproducts and how they leave the body. So your fat actually converts into 2 things, water and carbon dioxide. And that gives you the energy. There's another thing they don't mention in here. A lot of times if you have things in your body that are toxins, they're usually also stored in the fat cells. So a lot of times if you've got a lot of weight on you, you may have a lot of that those toxins in your fat. So this is why you may not feel that good losing weight in the beginning, because now you're releasing these throughout your body too. So that's not mentioned in here, but it's something that I've noticed before too, and kind of my past life when I was a lot heavier and I wanted to lose weight. And that first week of losing weight, I did not feel really good. So just to kind of.
And it says, okay, then while breathing, we breathe out CO2. And about 84% of lost fat leaves our bodies as CO2.
Yeah, and the remaining 16% of the fat loss becomes water. This leaves our body through urine, sweat, and other bodily fluids.
Oh, that's interesting.
So a factor influencing the fat loss is all these things can affect your rate of fat loss. Your diet, that's your exercise routine, how your hormones are acting, and your metabolism. All of these kind of play a part.
So it's a diet and nutrition. Eating well is important for weight control and fat loss. Yeah. And if you don't eat properly, then your body doesn't burn the fat.
Yeah, it doesn't really go into the process. It just says that the right balance of carbohydrates and proteins and fat is key. Each plays a unique role in your body, and the right balance may provide you enough energy and support that fat loss.
Yeah, I've noticed so many of these articles they blithely make a statement and there's no further information about it. No suggestions, no analysis, nothing.
Yeah, well, that's why kind of we're breaking it down.
Yeah.
Number 2 is the exercise and physical activity and the role of exercise in burning fat. We know that exercise burns calories. This is where you get your energy from. This creates a calorie deficit and aids in fat loss. it also improves blood circulation, feeding our cells with oxygen and other nutrients. And it also helps, of course, remove the waste products,
Right.
some of those toxins that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the,
Number 3 is hormonal balance and metabolic rate, the influence of hormones on fat storage. Hormones can play a big role. They do play a big role in weight and body fat control. Insulin and leptin can affect your appetite and energy balance. And you've talked about leptin over the
leptin
years.
is the kind of thing that tells you whether you're going to be hungry or not.
Yeah, it's an appetite regulator.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 is hormone balance and metabolic rate. And of course, hormones do play a big role in weight and body fat control. For instance, insulin and leptin can affect your appetite and energy balance. Insulin plays a huge role in that because this is what kind of evens things out. If you're eating too high of one carbohydrate that has a lot of sugar in it, the simple carbs, insulin goes in there and kind of just
tries to
sort it
out, process
a little bit,
it.
process it, and decides what's going to be stored as fat. And not only can carbohydrates be stored as fat, also your insulin can be stored as fat. So if you're really spiking your sugar a lot, we've learned through the years that not only are those carbohydrates that you're not burning because you're eating too much of them, they get stored, but also the insulin stores too. So it's kind of a double whammy where you can put on weight rather quickly. And we've all noticed this. If you eat a couple of bags of chips a night for a week, you're going to have that 5 or 6 pounds on you. And
well, you're also going to have salt problems.
Yeah,
and
lots
sugar
of problems. And that
problems.
messes with the hormones that
Right.
are regulating everything. And you can see how it can go around very quickly. So the next thing is, where does fat go during
Go
the weight
first.
Go first during the weight loss process.
You know, I remember back in the day, like I think in high school or something, and somebody would say, I went on a diet and I, instead of losing weight in my middle, I lost weight in my breasts. And it's like just where I don't want to lose weight. So it's interesting. And it says that different people lose fat in different patterns due to factors like genes, sex, and lifestyle habits.
Yeah.
But you can't lose weight from just one body part at a time.
Yeah, years ago when I had my personal training business, performance training, I had a couple of gals that came in who had the liposuctions around their middle and different places like that.
Size, yeah.
And then slowly but surely over the next 2 years, their necks got fattier.
Oh, jeez.
So the fat, if you're not changing your lifestyle and your eating patterns, and they were exercising a lot, and this is what they were determining that, as long as I had this liposuction, I can eat what I want as long as I exercise. And of course, we know that's not the case. So the fat will form where it's going to form. And if it doesn't have those fat cells around the middle anywhere, it's going to go someplace else. And in their cases,
It's going somewhere,
it
right?
went there, yes.
All right.
Factors affecting fat loss distribution. Well, genetics plays a role, hormones, your body structure, all this can determine where you lose fat. And certain medications and health conditions can affect those things too.
Right. Stubborn fat, why it's hard to lose. It says even though fat loss is gradual, some areas may be tougher. The belly and hips, for example, can resist fat loss. They have more alpha-2 adrenergic receptors, which slow down fat burning. So then they offer some tips for promoting fat loss and maintaining a healthy weight.
Okay, so the first tip is smart dietary choices. There you go.
So they want you to do portion control.
Right.
Okay, and then they say incorporate whole foods and avoid processed foods.
And all that makes sense. Portion control. I think our ancestors ate as much as they could back in the old days.
Because they only ate infrequently.
Yeah, they probably ate infrequently. I don't know how true that is, but
They
certainly
didn't eat every single day, guaranteed.
Maybe not. Maybe
3
Maybe the
meals.
hunting wasn't so good. But
Right.
if you follow the herd and you're smart,
Yeah.
things like that happen. So number 2 is staying physically active. Of course, our
Okay.
ancestors had to because they were building
But
things.
let's talk about today.
Okay.
Just today. we've mentioned all of these things. Making smart choices, local sourcing, looking for food that makes you feel good, but not just because it's full of sugar and fat. But it encourages you to sleep well, and it encourages you to just to feel good in general, and helps build protein and repair the body.
The way we've always looked at it is that what is out in the wild that we can eat, and that kind of makes sense. There's a lot of products when you go to the grocery store that you will never find in the wild.
You don't find boxes of stuff in the wild.
You don't. That certainly, but I'm talking about the actual food.
Right.
You don't find. There's not much cereals out there to make bread. There's a little bit. You could probably do a little bit.
Well,
but,
you don't find loaves of bread. It
all
has to be heavily processed.
And not only that, and that takes a lot of time.
Right.
First you have to gather it, and then you have to mill it and break it down.
Dry it.
And then you have to dry it.
You have to be in the same place for quite a while.
And then you have to have fire and bake it. So it's very time consuming. The other thing is a lot of things are seasonal. So out here we'll find things like berries and those, and we know those are very good for us.
Right.
So
and by the way, folks,
and you don't have to do much to them.
We finally beat the birds to the raspberries.
Yeah, we did today. The other day, that was cool. And we have some more blueberries coming out and things like that. So, but those are the things that I see when I go out in the woods. When I was young in Canada, we'd be picking blueberries and raspberries and even strawberries sometimes. And those things don't really spike your sugar.
No, and because they're seasonal too.
And they're in the fall.
Yeah.
So if they do spike your sugar, put on a little fat. That's probably really good, right? So they say, of course, stay physically active, and that really makes sense. So we need to
then
do
we're going
that.
to ensure proper sleep and stress management. They just always throw out manage your stress, and then they move on.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. Get some physical activity and have some fun exercises. And when I was a kid, that's all we did. We had a lot of fun, played tag, ran around. And today the kids are much more organized because... Yeah,
there's team sports.
Yes, team
keeping them
sports.
busy
It's not as much
home.
fun. It's more stressful, I would say.
Wow.
If you're going to be joining a team, it gets more stressful because you have to make the team. Maybe you're not picked number 1. You're picked number 10 or 30. You're not picked at all. All these things add stress to your life, where just playing tag, there's not a lot of stress to that. You hide, and it's fun, and I'm caught or I'm not caught. Yay! And it's a lot deeper. Anyway, number 3 is ensuring proper sleep.
We just talked about it.
Okay. So the challenge of keeping weight off.
And what are the factors that contribute to weight regain? And here's what they say. There's one sentence. You can put weight back on if you go back to poor eating, stop working out, or ignore your hormonal imbalances.
And here's their conclusion. Knowing how fat loss works is the key to losing weight. Really? Remember, every person's journey is different. Factors such as diet, exercise, hormones, metabolism affects how you lose weight and how you can be successful at that. By using the practical tips here, like eating right and exercising often and dealing with sleep and stress, you're more likely to stay healthy for many years to come.
And lose fat.
Yeah, and then they have a whole question and answer period, which we're really not going to go into.
And they do have all these articles have references.
Yeah. Next article is, why do carbohydrates make you gain weight?
Too many of the wrong types of carbs can make you gain weight. Exercise and portion control are both excellent strategies in managing your weight, but they're only part of the story. Did you know that you can follow 2 different meal plans with the same daily calories, and one can lead to weight loss while the other leaves you at a plateau or even gaining weight?
Yeah, portion control is certainly one thing that they've been talking about for many years, from the 50s on. And I don't think that's a strategy that works too well, because a lot of the foods that we eat in modern times make you more hungry. Certainly a bag of chips.
So you're eating, 15 snacks a day.
Yeah. And of course, our regular mainstream news is telling us to eat 5 times a day. You're going to have 3 times a day, and then you got a snack in between. Yeah, this is the healthy, normal diet that they're promoting most of the time.
Yeah, lately I've been seeing a little bit more in the way of don't snack and eat eat in a way that satisfies you and cures your hunger, and then you don't, and doesn't trigger hunger. So
Yeah. The amount of carbohydrates in a meal is the key to losing weight and keeping it off, because unfortunately the wrong types and too many carbs make you gain weight. I think we have to remember here that carbohydrates are not one of the essential nutrients. The essential nutrients are basically the protein and the fat. Carbohydrates certainly play a role because a lot of plants do have a lot of nutrition in them. But if you go out in the wild, there's not a lot of them there that you can eat, and there's a lot of them that you can't eat. And you have to be really experienced. You just can't be going out eating everything that's out there that's green. That's not, that's a system for disaster as far as eating is concerned, because you can't go to a pine tree and start eating the pine.
well, also your body can't digest it and
Yeah.
can't make nutrients from it the same way that they do from
So
that
a
it
lot,
does.
a lot of the carbohydrates that we've had, and I'm not just talking about the ones that are heavily refined, like the pasta and the
Processed.
bread and all those things. I'm talking about just the natural ones. We've made those in such a way that we cultivate them to be bigger. And, an apple in the old days was a very, very small apple.
Like a crab apple.
Yeah, now we have really large apples. And I think all fruit has that. If you see the indigenous pictures of bananas from a couple hundred years ago, they were very small.
Well, even if we grew bananas, we grew bananas at one point in Florida, and that they were finger bananas.
Right.
They were like this big.
Yeah. And also I think our ancestors had really one main source of glucose until they started eating potatoes and things like that. And that was the honey. And we know honey has a lot of good bacteria in us, and it helps promote a lot of health and has a lot of nutrition in it. And it really doesn't spike your sugar unless you're eating so much. And
Well, let's continue on with this article here, because it says that eating too many and the wrong types of carbs can make you gain weight by disrupting your glucose and insulin levels and promoting fat storage. Also, certain types of carbs can also throw your gut bacteria out of balance. And so it says, in the past, doctors were recommending low fat, low calorie, relatively high carb diet for weight loss. But without fat or fiber to slow the absorption of the carbs were causing spikes and crashes in blood sugar, which could also make you feel hungry again. And when you feel hungry, you also feel deprived, and you're more likely to binge eat.
yeah, so these high glycemic carbohydrates move through the digestive system very quickly and spike your blood sugar and insulin. So the low glycemic carbohydrates digest very slowly, prevent the blood sugar spikes, and you won't have those crashes. And that's very true. So if you're just eating the green lettuce and things like that, you're probably not going to get spiked.
Right,
Those-
and
those
not
things.
very much.
It's
there.
mostly the breads, the pastas, the high sugar stuff,
highly processed food.
highly processed food, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So over the years, the standard American diet has transitioned to highly processed foods with a high glycemic load. And, basically just to, again, glycemic load describes the way your blood sugar levels are affected by the carbs you eat.
Yeah.
So when they spike, you have a high glycemic.
Yeah, and what's the reason that we have so many of these foods at the grocery store?
They last forever.
They last on the shelf forever. So for
And they're
the
cheap to
manufacturers, they're relatively expensive to produce. They can stay in the package for a long, long time, years. And fresh food is kind of the
That's
worst
your
thing.
lost leader.
Yeah.
If you don't sell it, it goes bad.
Yeah, so packaged food, you do want that if you're selling it and you want to make a profit. Right.
So it says carbs make you gain weight for a variety of reasons. In the simplest explanation, according to the article, many foods that are high in carbs are also high in calories, especially sugary sodas, pizzas, muffins, cakes, ice cream, and other desserts. Eating these foods regularly not only pushes you over your carb needs, but it provides too many empty calories as well. And empty calories, of course, are calories that don't provide any nutrition to your body.
And most of these are added, there's things added to them. And most of the time you're talking about a combination of sugar and salt that
and
balance.
fat,
Yeah.
and bad
And really not good quality sugars probably, and not good quality salts probably.
Right.
They're not throwing the Himalayan sea salt in there.
Right.
So, salt makes you thirsty. Drinking more makes you
That's
hungry.
why they serve peanuts and salted stuff at the bar.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They
So
have
you can drink
another
more.
beer.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. Also, unless there's the carbohydrates are high in fiber, they're digested very quickly, which means you're hungry again after a very short time.
Shortly after.
Usually
eating.
a couple hours, sometimes immediately. It seems like, especially if
the refined carbs.
Yeah.
And then it says when your blood sugar is spiking, your pancreas produces the insulin to maintain your optimal blood sugar levels. The more insulin in your blood, the more your body converts carbs to fat that gets stored in your body. And oftentimes the fat is stored in your belly.
Yeah, if you continue to eat a lot of carbohydrates, the resulting high insulin levels reduce your body's ability to burn the stored fat. So you're either storing fat or you're burning fat. The two don't really go in, and you can almost feel your body switching over a lot of times. If you're a marathon runner, you'll find that all of a sudden you're depleting your energy, and now you're burning the fat, and you may not have a lot of it if you're a marathon runner because you're
very thin.
You're very thin. So it's basically a high fat diet, which is really a big trend in the last 20 years or so. Is something that a lot of people are on, and the reason we're on it is because really high quality fats burn nice and slow, and they're good and steady. They won't spike anything, and you don't get hungry. And if you don't get hungry, you're not eating a lot of these processed foods.
Well, they're saying that after a 6-month study at Johns Hopkins, they were comparing weight loss based on a low carb diet versus a low fat diet. And both groups lost weight, but the low carb group lost 10 pounds more on average. And additionally, they lost more fat and less muscle, while the low fat group lost more muscle and less fat. So the more muscle you have in your body, the more your body burns fat and calories. And based on this evidence, the researchers concluded a low carb diet is more beneficial to weight loss than a low fat diet.
I think that's pretty much established now.
It seems like it. Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense. That's what we've been doing for a long, long time. And we don't have those spikes, and we don't snack very often. And the nice thing about our diet is we eat a lot of really good proteins in animal sources, and we eat very little carbohydrates. And we do use those carbohydrates mostly for spices and just adding a little flavor to the meats.
Yeah, or just as dip some sourdough bread in nice olive oil.
Yeah, things like that, or
that.
maybe chips and salsa,
But those are corn chips, not potato chips.
Yeah, well, I don't think it really makes that much difference as long as they're sourced good, so you don't have GMO.
It makes a difference for me because I don't do well with potato, and the corn chips are fine for my.
Yeah, and I don't get that same urge with corn chips.
You don't sit down and eat a bag.
No.
Okay, then it says carbs also have an influence on your gut bacteria.
Yeah, and this is kind of controversial because the going thing is that your gut bacteria is influencing a lot of how your body digests food. I think that's right. It's but a lot of people promote eating a lot of fiber. So this is the whole thing between brown rice and white rice, and whole wheat bread, and I certainly think that your better products are going to have a little bit more of the brown stuff in it. The brown. We'd rather eat sourdough bread rather than the whole wheat bread,
right? It's already
because it's already fermented.
Yeah.
And I'm not so. I don't really like the bleached white bread because there's not a lot of flavor in it. But it probably doesn't do you much harm either, as long as you don't eat a ton of it. If you're just eating one slice, it's not going to hurt you as much as if you have a couple of sandwiches.
Or a couple of slices of bread with every meal.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does. It says that carbs that are high in fiber are absorbed more slowly than carbs that don't have as much fiber, so they don't affect your blood sugar levels as much.
Remember then, when you're talking about fibers, you're talking about something that is not digested in your body.
It passes through.
It kind of passes through, and there was an old adage, well, it just scrapes all the bad stuff out, and that's pretty much disproven. So fiber is not really essential. It adds bulk to your meal, but
it adds bulk to your excretions as well.
So if you're eating like cabbage and things like that, they have fiber in it. That fiber is not bad. The whole wheat,
meat has fiber.
Yeah, but they don't call it fiber.
Right.
That's muscle fiber, and that's a whole different bag. When in dietary terms, you're talking fiber, you're talking carbohydrates, basically. So
but they do say here that there are high levels of fiber in beans and peas and lentils, brown rice, quinoa, sweet potatoes, beets, fruits, and other vegetables. And it says, although they contain carbohydrates, they're also packed with vitamins and other nutrients and are relatively low calorie. Some low carb veggies that also have anti-inflammatory properties include leafy greens, Brussels sprouts, zucchini, broccoli, yellow squash. Well, spinach, kale, and broccoli and Brussels sprouts,
asparagus, they're all
all the
derived
same
from
plant.
the same plant. Yeah.
The mustard,
and they're not bad.
Plant.
If you're just eating those things, as far as carbs are concerned, if you're eating a little bit of fruit, you're in good shape.
It says berries, including blackberries, blueberries, and strawberries and raspberries, are the lowest carb fruits, also high in fiber, antioxidants, and other vitamins and minerals. And other low carb fruits include starfruit, avocado, and tomatoes.
So it says at the bottom here, think quality, not quantity. Carbs that are high in fiber are absorbed more slowly and don't have as much than the ones that don't have as much fiber. High fiber foods make you feel full quicker. I'm not sure that's true. But.
And then they say the last thing is avoid added sugar as much as you can. And strictly limit or eliminate all processed carbs, like foods made with white flour, which would be your breads, your pastas, your pizzas, muffins, cakes, and cookies, and white rice. It says a white rice, although we've talked in the past about that white rice is actually better for you than brown rice.
Well, that's what the Chinese have discovered thousands of years ago, that the dietary factor was if you just have the rice with the meat, it takes on the flavor of the meat. And, we started started eating those foods because the meat wasn't around. That's the basic philosophy.
To bulk up the meat.
Yeah, so you had to have some kind of energy. So, and they discovered a long time ago, when you ferment those things, they're going to be a lot better for you. And that's why the Japanese have kimchi and all these other processes of fermenting these foods that are very beneficial to your stomach, because that's what your stomach is trying to do anyway.
Well, fermentation is a sort of a pre-digestion, kind of starting the breakdown process with enzymes.
It helps you digest the food.
Much.
So there's one more article here.
This article, the link between carbs and weight gain. And the interesting thing about this article is it talks about monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Right. And monosaccharides are simple sugars and that do not require further breakdown by the body. And those are your glucose, your fructose, and your galactose. And so like fruits, the sugar that's in fruits. Then you have disaccharides, which are two molecules of monosaccharides. And one of the primary examples of a disaccharide is lactose.
Yeah, and it's also sugar canes and beets and
sucrose.
Honey. Yeah, sucrose. And then there are the polysaccharides, which are the long chain forms, and these are the complex ones. And this is mostly
they require a long time to break down, and they're difficult for the body to digest.
Yeah.
So carbs, based on the effect of carbohydrates on blood sugar levels and their impact on insulin, there are simple carbs, complex carbs, and fiber.
Yeah, simple carbs, well, they're simple and they're simple sugars. And this is the type of carbs that can definitely cause you weight gain.
Well,
and this is mostly what we're talking about when you process a carbohydrate. You end up with a simple carb.
yeah, and well, the point here, I think, is also that since it doesn't require a lot of processing in the body, it immediately goes into your blood, and then spikes the sugar in your blood and triggers the insulin.
Yeah, and there's your problem right there. And after a while, if you do this constantly, then your body becomes less and less sensitive, and then you have resistance to insulin, called insulin resistance, and then your body's not doing the right thing, and then you're on the road to diabetes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So complex carbs, these are mostly starches and sugars that are in small berries
plants,
and fruits and plants
basically.
and things like that. And then the fibrous ones, they add bulk to them. So that's basically. And it explains in here how simple carbs cause you to gain weight. We've kind of covered that. And complex carbs also can make you gain weight if you eat too many of them. So the portion control that we talk about is basically your meal is consistent with having a nice protein source, which we feel are just animals or fish or birds and things like that. And then having a small amount of the other thing. And that's pretty much a balance for us. That's the way we look at it. And that's the way we think we've been pretty healthy throughout the years.
Well, then it talks about grains, and it's interesting because, again, they say, remember that simple carbohydrates are the ones that go straight to sugar, straight to your body, get converted to fat, spike your insulin, cause problems.
This is basically what grains do, right? Grains and fruits.
But he says that, it says here, whole unprocessed or minimally processed grains are complex carbs. So they're the ones that help you. Studies have indicated that, whole grains reduce low-density lipoproteins, LDL cholesterol, and total cholesterol and body fat percentage, and the complex carbs also help maintain weight by improving glucose levels and glucose homeostasis after you eat. So then they mention legumes, and they mention...
because legumes have more fiber in them, they're going to slow down the sugar. There's a lot of things in legumes that are anti-nutrients, I would say. This is why you have gas from them, because your body's trying to break these things down and they cause a lot of gas. Fruits, we already discussed that fruits thousands of years ago were a lot smaller, so we've made them a lot bigger.
And intensified the sugar content.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Sugar and water.
Yeah, so it says...
and then there's a whole paragraph on here. Do you need to avoid carbs for weight loss? And I think, probably so.
Well, then there is a paragraph here that says it's worth noting that some populations have remained in excellent health while eating a moderate carb diet.
Yeah.
The Okinawan people and the Mediterranean people who consume a significant portion of their daily calorie intake from carbs have some of the most expanded lifespans. So what they have in common is they eat natural, unprocessed foods.
There you go. There's a whole difference.
And there's the
right there.
answer right there.
Yeah. So I think you can, you can experiment around and eat like the Okinawans or the Mediterranean type diet, where you're not eating any processed foods of any kind, and you can do quite well. I think most of the things there hasn't been shown to me where there are a huge population of people who eat only plants,
right? No,
and are healthy, but there may be some. There may be some.
All right, so...
the conclusion here really is that the truth behind carbs is that you can include them in your diet as long as you choose the right ones.
And simple or refined carbs cause a rapid increase in sugar levels, convert to fat, cause weight gain. But complex carbs take longer to digest, cause a slow rise in sugar levels. And also it points out here that many people don't understand that liquid carbs in bottled fruit juices, sports drinks, soda, and alcohol are even worse than solid, simple carbs.
Well, those are the most processed, aren't they? They're liquid.
Yeah, sure,
it just makes sense.
sure. So it just says take a good look at the carbs. And
then
there's
they-
also a Q&A in the bottom of that
Yeah, which you
one,
can
so you can take a look
yourself.
at that.
Basically, I know most of the listeners here know that we're on more of a carnivore or high protein or high fat,
High animal fat.
high animal fat and moderate protein and low carb type of diet. We don't restrict ourselves. We have fun. We drink a little alcohol now and then. And
Little wine.
Little wine, yeah.
Little
wine is-
beer.
little beer. Even a shot of tequila now and then. But, if I have 2 shots of tequila, I don't feel that great. So I'm not going to do that most of the time. But it's, you have to be sensible about these things. And the whole thing is if you stop eating processed foods of any kind,
Right.
no matter what it is,
Right.
your health is really going to improve.
And your weight, you'll lose weight.
And as far as exercise, you just go for a walk every single day and add a few miles. Do a 3-4 miles every single day for 3 or 4 days a week. That's probably good enough.
Well, 30
Yeah.
minutes a day.
Gardening is a great way to stay limber. Jiu-jitsu is a great way to stay limber. There's a lot of activities that you can do in a group or by yourself that can do that. It's just
Swimming.
Yeah, swimming is great. Yeah, at home I used to swim a lot in Florida because we had a pool. But here we're walking more and we're doing a lot of other things. And being in nature helps too. So if you're out in the woods, which we're going to do this weekend too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going out to see our friend Colorado Bigfoot up in Eagle and see some family
And
up there.
reconnect with our cousins. And,
Yeah. So we're going to have another adventure. And I think that's probably another thing that they really don't mention in these articles is having adventure. I went 4-wheeling with a friend last week. And when you go 4-wheeling, you go into territories. You may know it, but it's never the same every year. And also, you never know what's going to be happening. It's kind of like stepping on the mats in jiu-jitsu, and especially the first time. That's one of the big adventures, doing activities that you've never done and exploring those things. And adventure is very necessary in your life. And I think our ancestors had that in their lives every single day because they were living out in the wild. And now we're so subjected to being into a structured society that there's not a lot of adventures. You have to go out and find it. And I think it's important to do that.
It's important to challenge yourself, to step outside your comfort zone, try something that you wouldn't ordinarily do. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you don't enjoy it. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's good to kind of spike your adrenaline a little every now and again.
Instead of your sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our show for today. So I appreciate you sticking around.
Be well.
Bye-bye now.